let's call this meeting to order. I'm seeing more than enough basis for a quorum. So we are good to go. Adjustments to the agenda. Bob had a couple comments to make. Maybe we
That-
can,
You want me to do that now, or I can do that at the end of the meeting? It's up to you.
we can do that. Let's do that now, because then, yeah, let's just do that now.
Okay, so the first one is just a reminder to everybody out there that on Friday at 4:30 in this room, we will have a transfer station committee workshop and try to decide whether or not this town has a problem, along with its partner towns of Cushing and Friendship, spending over $1 million a year to get rid of its garbage. I'd like people to come and tell us if we have a problem or not. If we agree we have one, maybe we'll find a way of dealing. And the second announcement concerns Article 45 of the June warrant, which deals with a $316,000 deal for installing fiber optic broadband in Waldoboro. It has an important economic impact on the town. Average rates being charged by the company that would do it.
If I can, if you don't mind me just jumping
No,
in
go
there, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I thought that actually would have probably been under old business anyways, because I think, and you wanted to know more about the LCI study anyways from last month, and so it might actually be a good chance to talk about that and the LCI study.
So then we'll move that broadband discussion into old business.
Yep.
And I'd just like to put out an invitation. The Friends of the Waldoboro Library, colloquially known as the Fowl, are having are having a reception to thank all the members of the community who have been supporters through the bleak years of the pandemic, which are hopefully always to remain in the rear view. But we want to invite everybody to come tomorrow to the library at, from 5:30 to, about 7 for light refreshments and to learn more about what the library is doing and give us your input on things you might like to see us explore. If you've been thinking any things like, darn, I wish the library did X, or I wish there was, a training class for how to put up a personal website or something like that. So we would love to see you there.
It's terrific. Citizens' comments would be next. I don't see any citizens.
Yeah.
Minutes, I need to be reminded which minutes need approval and where are we, Rebecca, with the latest?
Rebecca? Well,
Hear a voice. Sort of. I wonder if your signal is a little bit spotty.
or it might just be the mic. Well.
Say,
I've heard this. It's got to be that Starlink connection.
I thought she was on cable.
She does now. I'm being a little facetious.
Maybe she's
Well,
having spectrum issues.
Rebecca, if you want, you could type in the chat. Yep. How about enter? Yeah, I was about to say, Jen, Rebecca, you could probably type what you're thinking in the chat and, I'll just we'll read it out in just a minute. I feel like it was approved last time and
Well, we tabled it because we had just gotten the draft minutes, which
Does she want to call in and she can go on my speakerphone?
I mean, this should be fine for calling as well. So let's anyways, what were you gonna say, Conrad?
so we just need to approve the February minutes. The draft February minutes are in the Dropbox folder for this meeting, April 30th.
It's just, so yeah, and she just confirmed, it's just the February minutes. March minutes aren't done yet.
Okay, great. So, I just need a motion to approve the February minutes. We have a motion to do so.
I'll make that motion.
Second, okay. All in favor of approving the February minutes?
And Jan and Jen have their hands up. And Just a note from Rebecca, this is why cable isn't enough for her house.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, motion passed. We have a set of minutes for February. We'll get to March at the next meeting. So for my chair report, I can say that I presented our biannual report at the select board. And it was warmly received. And Abden had made a suggestion about certain properties that could be developed in the way into town. And John Belagic was excited by some of the things that we're doing and was really encouraging us to move forward and just generally encouraging. So that seems like a pretty good way of establishing a regular line of communication between the select board and the committee here. And as a result of that meeting, and talking about things that we can do in the near term, midterm, things that low-hanging fruit, things that we can do to, especially in regard to downtown revitalization, Julie has tasked us with something which we're gonna get to under new business. So I'm gonna talk about that when we get there, but just a heads up. Next, town updates.
Yep, so in terms of planning board items, May be a quiet month. We will have a pre-application for a brewery at 122 Atlantic Highway. That's the Applecroft property. It'll just be a pre-application, so they're just gonna talk about the concept itself and see what people think about it, and if the planning board has any specific notes or comments they want to make sure are integrated into the actual application. Dow Furniture on 299 Atlantic Highway is also supposed to be coming forward with a warehouse expansion. I don't have the application in hand yet, but I'll just have to wait and see if that can actually be presented in time. Other than that, the main health application, which I know everyone's waiting for, is likely going to be for the June planning board meeting. I do have an updated site plan, but it doesn't have any context behind it. It's just pretty much confirming the road will be along the northern border now, rather than what people who saw the pre-application saw. It was gonna go along the neighbor's property lines. It's now just gonna be a straight driveway going down. In terms of, well, and because I have that and have a better idea for what we can use for a community center, we're still starting to do outreach to nonprofit groups who are interested in finding a home to see if what we can fit into this space and how we can best utilize it. And then working and finishing up on some grants, just submitted a congressional directed spending one. So we can try and buy an ambulance. So at no cost to the town. That would be very nice to get it done. And then it might help fund the with the money we save, we might be able to fund the broadband project, who knows? Which I won't go into, Ruben probably better to go over all that later. And then this Thursday should be the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund, so we know if we were awarded for an aquaculture study in the Madomic River. It's been getting a bit of attention outside of Waldoboro, so it'll be nice if we were able to get that as well. And beyond that, the last bit is just Quarry Hill. The blueberry fields on May 8th are gonna have, no, May 11th are gonna have a controlled burn being done. That's just something we started 2 years ago, and last year, the blueberries that were controlled burned were the only ones that actually were growing last year, whereas everywhere else seemed to be very slim pickings. So it's gonna be nice for the fire department to continue on that. We are also going to have the trail being finished up for the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund that we got for that trail expansion. That should be done early midsummer, I think. And that's all I have, unless anyone has any town update questions for me. I hear that the downtown partnership that's supposed to do the speed tables is supposedly being awarded to us, but I haven't gotten any official document in my hand, so, but that's just,
And they don't have a timeline for you
No, like this was something we submitted, I think, December. And it's just still been rolling along.
Speed tables are,
They're like speed bumps, but they flatten out at just the top so that, you know, you'll go up for a little bit, be leveled for a second and then go back down. That's a lot easier on the snowplow trucks, which is what convinced the Public Works Department to be in favor of this project rather than the speed bump.
And it highlights the pedestrian crossing. It's literally a path for pedestrians across the street.
Yeah, if anyone has gone to Brunswick through their downtown, there you'll see plenty of speed tables and how they just have the crosswalks right on top of it.
have we used those signs that have the lights on when you start, like, if it's 35 and you're doing 36, they flash like as you go into Thomaston?
That is something that Julie, I believe, is having Maine DOT doing in the downtown, at least in the meantime.
Yeah, 220 south and 220 north, people would bomb down there.
So
Yeah,
that's happening like very soon.
Like
Yeah.
right outside my driveway, I'm right at that bend before the, about a mile now. They're doing just 60 miles an hour.
I do. There is one more town item I did just remember. I was at the water committee meeting last week. There is some interest to have some collaborations between the water committee, the utility district, and hopefully the EDC to talk about expanding and working on more Route 1 corridor project type things, because I was already looking into the water extension study so that we could get water to at least top of the hill here. It's certainly going to be a costly project, but that started sort of a conversation with Maine Water because the pressure in the downtown isn't really ideal. But that with the combined note in the comprehensive plan to extend the utilities onto Route 1 and try and encourage more growth on what's supposed to be the commercial district is something that the water committee has been very interested in, and the utility district, at least for the one meeting I've been at, has also expressed interest into it and would like to just talk with at least one or two members or the whole EDC in the future about some potential things. So whether that's they come to an EDC meeting or we just have someone from the EDC meet with someone from water committee and sort of have an ad hoc group going initially to see what this could work into the future.
I wouldn't mind if representative, if they came to a meeting, should
Mhm.
anyone have a feeling one way or the other?
I like the plan. I think those conversations are great.
Rather than meeting with one or two people separately. Because we're not a huge committee, so I kind of figure you might as well engage. those who are
Yeah, if we were
coming.
talking boards that were, dozens of people, that would be one thing, but I think, how big is the water committee? For the utility group?
It's well, the water committee is about 3 or 4 people. Bob, you'll be asked if
There were 5 the last time I was at the meeting.
there was well,
Julia,
it's about 3 now. Mike Thayer.
someone left.
Yeah, it's like Mike Thayer, Carlton Johnson, and I think
Smaller,
Sam.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
sit around the table with us.
a quick sidetrack. I don't know if you recall this, but Mark Stoltz was approved to be on the water committee before he became the CEO. So he doesn't know if he's actually technically supposed to be on the water committee now. But anyways, you'll deal with that question later on. But yeah, I can just let the water committee and utility district know that maybe we should do a workshop for a future meeting.
that would be great. Oh, and the other question I have for you is about the updates on a downtown forum meeting, or is that strictly waiting for an announcement from DOT about village partnership?
I was waiting for the DOT partnership, but at this point, I might as well just start planning the actual forum for the summer, like June or so. Because at least by then, tourism season will start kicking in and that might get some new, fresh ideas from people as well, just as we're seeing it. And we're talking about it tonight anyway, so.
Right.
Figured I'd wait to hear what everyone else says.
So that was town updates. Let's turn now to old business, starting with website stuff.
Yes, Rebecca has gathered some photos for me. I haven't really had a chance to, what I need to do next is to look into what sort of software is there that makes it easy to mock up a website? I generally just do something like on a spreadsheet, which ends up looking pretty heckish, or on some
For a spreadsheet, for a
PowerPoint.
website.
I know a person I could ask. My knowledge is dated. Like I'm aware of Adobe Dreamweaver, but they stopped supporting that.
I would
Right.
suggest that you just go to Squarespace or Weebly. One of these.
Squarespace is great.
I've
Alec
used
had a question earlier.
Squarespace for mine, so yeah, sure.
And you can just, without publishing or signing up
Yeah.
for a paid program, you can actually just use the online tools to make a website, page.
They do all the other, all the
Yeah.
free stuff, right?
Well,
So,
I've got
got-
my own account with them.
Oh,
I
so
didn't even think of that,
Yeah.
so that's what I'll do.
it's funny how that works, right?
And
Just. I've been getting a book to the publisher today, so
Oh,
I've
big
been only a
Okay.
little bit distracted. But, yeah, that's what I'll,
Alec had a comment.
yeah, it's a huge relief.
So we have to create the website ourselves.
Well,
They have templates.
We don't have to create the website. But once we've
The
organized the content, folks at the town office can input that content.
So we're just talking.
sort of sketching around. So, yeah, there has been good thought going into it. There is nothing physical to look at, and we'll endeavor to be sure that there is physical stuff to look at our next meeting.
I think that should be pretty
Pretty
easy,
straightforward.
straightforward to just mock up a page in Squarespace.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have,
But anybody who has pictures of Waldoboro-esque things, one of the things we were concerned about with, say, pictures of the Easter event is we don't want to have kids' pictures up there without either the kids' permission or the parents' permission, or really, I'm not sure it's even a good idea at all. So we do want to have pictures. We want to have people doing interesting things to show what a cool place Waldoboro is. But we also don't want to freak anybody out because they're all of a sudden on the town website and that's not their particular live stream. So,
What about asking people to submit some photos?
oh, what a great idea.
Do that. I'm like, Waldeboro has some great community pages. Rebecca manages one.
Yeah, well,
And they could start there. You'd still need to look for all the stuff you mentioned, but you're cognizant of those things, which is super great. And just be clear, this is what we want to do with it. This is where it would go.
yeah, sure. Oh, that's a great thought.
anybody online have anything to add about what we need to think about this month as we prepare drafts for the website updates?
Not for me.
Next point, downtown forum ideas. A few of you have contributed some ideas to that Google Doc, which is really helpful. And at this point, I would just recommend everyone else take a look at that. And if there's anything else you want to add to it, feel free to. And at this point, our part is done until we have the forum, and then we can go to the forum and begin a conversation. Yeah, Bob.
I really recommend you work with the Waldoboro Business Association on this forum idea. They had a meeting last night. I've never seen so many people at their meeting. And these are all people very few of them I knew.
Okay.
And I used to have a business in town. So there's a whole new energy going on there. And a lot of them are on Main Street, on Friendship Street. So
It's pretty vital.
encourage that coordination.
I was also impressed with the number of people who were there from Bristol and Bremen and just folks on 32 going down that side of the peninsula. So
Right.
I thought that was
They've been coming in from different places lately. I think we're getting a reputation.
I think so.
Oh, the food at those receptions is terrible.
That's a big draw.
That's a good way to get people, yeah.
Yep.
And certainly coordinating with the WBA will be core to organizing this forum in the first place, I would think.
And Jen is,
Jen and Jessica Pooley.
Right.
Two movers and shakers.
yeah, so maybe Jen would be willing to serve as our conduit to them.
Yeah, there used to be their own little group of village businesses in the past. But I think with so many changes, they may not have it all together right now. And they were coordinating their own stuff at that point. But we also have at least one new business going in soon there. I'm not sure, there might even be two.
Oh,
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
that's terrific.
You guys probably know about all that stuff. The rumors, fly.
I never hear rumors. I am like the last person to know. By the time I know a rumor, it's on the front page of the Lincoln County News.
Seems like,
Ah, Rebecca, mocktails, cocktails.
Oh,
Mocktails,
great.
Yep.
I had another question about the downtown forum, and forgive me, please, if it's something that I should know already. But will we be taking up the matter of bicycle friendliness as well as pedestrian friendliness? Because I'm an avid bicyclist. And of course, as you can probably guess, riding 220, it does not exactly make my heart beat with glee and delight. It's more sort of sheer terror, but it is good for making me go faster, because how fast can I get off this thing?
I share your terror. And when I've lived elsewhere, I've been an avid bicyclist. And here, going beyond the edge of the village, going beyond Sylvania seems like a non-starter.
Yeah.
Frankly.
My house is just three houses down on the right, it's the one with the mobile sign.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
In that corner, man, they just come bombing around that way.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately,
It's not downtown, so.
Yeah, right,
I will,
right.
I will keep my bicycling ideas in my back pocket for future topics.
so I would encourage you to keep those ideas and bring them to the downtown forum.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I think, at least the main goal I have with the downtown forum going into it, is more on, Worcester parking lot and pedestrian friendliness.
Yeah.
And as well as just announcing, the speed tables are happening, so now that that's happening, and hopefully the creation of maybe a downtown TIF, just if revaluations are potentially happening in the future, it's better to start capturing all that, so there is additional funding specifically to go towards a downtown project like this, so that it's not it's not something we have to sort of argue every single year at a budget committee or anything for. No offense.
Yeah, but
That said, I can remember when we had the bakery downtown, groups of cyclists coming up Route 1 or going down Route 1 and stopping in Waldeboro at that bakery.
Huh.
And at least
Yep.
going from Route 1 through old Route 1
Yeah.
down to Main Street and into Friendship Street.
Mhm.
There's no reason that can't be made cyclist friendly,
that's a great.
because
point.
that pulls people off of Route 1. You get a lot of riders on
Yeah.
Route 1.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of that road now?
Which-
Old Route 1, you mean West Main Street going up
Yeah,
that?
yeah, old Route 1. Did the state give it to Waldeboro?
No,
For plowing purposes, it did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thanks,
And we're in
guys.
charge of plowing it.
yeah, that's just it. We're in charge of plowing it, but like if anything happens on Main Street or Friendship, that's still 220, so we have to go through DOT.
That's right.
So for-
Right, we don't have control over those. How those are used. And, we have to go through DOT's process to request different changes if you want to talk to them about bicycle friendly.
So for instance, if you wanted to build a bike road on the shoulder of it, you couldn't just do that. You'd have to go.
Right.
DOT.
And it would take 15 years.
Not only that, no, it's not about, think carefully, get the money thing in your heads. How much per mile does it cost to actually build out? And you'd have to negotiate with property owners. It might be an easement, it might be a taking. I mean, it's complicated. That's not a simple thing. It depends on how large it has to be. I mean, it's a process. It's a process. It's not just like, just because DOT owns it doesn't, it's not about we can wave our hands and, I mean, it affects all the people and all the property owners on that road, whatever road you do, plus the fact that you have to work with the state to process that through and, however, it's complicated.
And
What I would love to do, what you said, Bob, is to put a sign up on Route 1 with an arrow to Perch Bakery. Because there is nothing cyclists like more than some good coffee and some high carb sweet treats. And
So there are signs on Route 1 for businesses have bought, I guess we buy them and
Okay.
have DOT put them up for our businesses on Route 1.
Yeah.
And if Perch doesn't have one there already, someone can suggest to them. There's also a sign with multiple business categories listed up at the top of Route 1, up above the old Route 1, that the Business Association paid for years ago, that points people down old Route 1 to the
Right.
village.
Yeah.
So maybe take a look at what's there and then talk to, if Perch hasn't already bought theirs, because almost all the businesses do that when they open.
Yeah.
We can suggest that they do that because they have choices on, I think on the color background, there's a limited choices, that kind of thing, how big, all that kind of stuff.
great, great. The other thing that would be encouraging for bicyclists would be if we had racks. There is no place, not that anybody's going to want to steal a bike because there's no bloody place you can ride it, but just it's for peace of mind more than anything for people in cities.
That's the first step in creating the basic infrastructure that tells people visually, this is a place where I can consider going to town on my bike.
Mhm.
That's gotta be part of a coordinated set of actions, and I totally agree. I would love to see that start to get rolling. But, as Jen pointed out, it's very complicated. I mean, my dream would be to have, kind of like in Brunswick down by the river, it's like a bike road that goes down 220 all the way to Friendship.
Would that
That's
be
my dream, but it's impossible because of the way that was developed. It started out as this little town road. The town didn't own it. It went over everybody's property. So, and it's tight and like the shoulder's already super tight, so it's kind of.
What shoulders?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There are some. I thought they
You know.
were like fingernails.
Yeah. So I don't even know how you would start with that, but that would be amazing.
Well, and what's funny about that, and Jen probably knows what I'm gonna talk about. So, the DOT kind of has their map of like a bike trail or something that goes through, the map I'm gonna talk about? Yeah, because it does say that the bike trail in Waldeboro goes along Route 1 and then down 220 through Friendship and everything.
Yeah,
I
well-
read that in the thing, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And occasionally you see brave souls covered in orange. And,
That's my husband.
Taking the,
But yeah, I mean, this is not a bicycle culture, and it takes a long time to change to a bicycle culture. I mean, even New York City is just getting there, and that took many decades. And it's now, there's a threshold beyond which people who aren't just people who look like me decide to bike. People who, women carrying children in their cargo bike, there's a threshold beyond which it feels safe to bike for other people.
I just got an e-bike
Oh, yeah?
to exercise, and I got my 3 weeks of training for my dog, and we go together, and he stays right by my side. Snowmobile trails, but I don't know of any bike trails.
But you go on the snowmobile trips. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta keep moving
Yes,
here.
sir.
Jan, do you wanna give us an update on the food pantry?
He said he might have.
I can do that.
well, you're still here.
This has been one of those, so the way we distribute is the first and third Tuesday of every month. And this month, first Tuesday was early in the month. So we've actually, our last food pantry was actually on the 16th. And so it's been a while since we've had a distribution. But there'll be one coming up next week, so that's good. We had at our last distribution, 169 families, which is pretty amazing. 415 individuals. The makeup was 125 children, 213 adults, and 77 seniors. Just a couple of other interesting things. We received a grant last summer from Bessie Brooks for $6,000 to provide prepared meals for seniors. And basically what we do is with every distribution, seniors who live on their own get a prepared meal. And it's interesting, in the 9 months that we've done this program, we've distributed 600 individual meals to seniors living on their own. So that's a pretty amazing statistic. The other really interesting one is Miller School. So we do the Miller School Weekend Meals program. And we distribute every Friday, about 125, give or take, packs of food for the kids at Miller School to take home for the weekend. And just to give you an idea, that is about 1 out of every 3 kids at Miller School. So that's a pretty amazing statistic. So we see absolutely no indication anywhere that the numbers are going to come down. They continue to go up. And that's our update. One other really quick thing, Max, we're waiting for an invite from the town to come and talk about the community center.
Who would be the person from the food pantry I invite to that? Or
You could-
multiple people?
You could talk to, you could let me know, or Nancy Lipper, she's the president.
All right, thank you. Those are stunning statistics.
And I'm going to slip away here in a little bit, but I'll stay on as long as I can.
Okay, thanks. All right, so new business. This is actually tying into what Jen was just talking about.
I think,
Did you want to hear about the internet?
I was about to say, I think broadband.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have to go to, we're adding this to old business. Fantastic.
All right, so I'm gonna couch this with how this data is separated and then a very extremely brief history lesson, and then the 2 main options we have. There's some data I'm going to be referencing. Some data is from LCI, some data is from Consolidated, who we interchangeably refer to as Fidium. Fidium's their product. And there's data I gathered. And there's a reason I did it that way. Starting with LCI, we went to LCI to get a price to get fiber to every doorstep in Waldoboro. And this is all in the name of digital equity and maybe reducing some communication bills. So for the $5,000 we gave them, they built us a map, they did a survey, and they manually confirmed who had access to what. And that data sits in its own bubble. And while we paid for that, it felt ethical to not share that with other providers. CCI has done the same work. And I know I sent everyone some documentation on what ISPs offer, but I don't know if I sent you all the draft of my spreadsheet. So there's a spreadsheet I'll send you all. It's still in progress, but it lists out every address that I could confirm did not have access. And I did that using the FCC broadband map and driving and looking down driveways. I wasn't peeking in windows or creeping people out. I did it during the daytime.
And there was a reason CCI was a good source to compare data with, because they used to have phone lines to every
Yep.
home in Waldoboro. So they know where they had service.
Yep.
As a ground line into a house.
So that's all baseline information to say that by my estimate, we have 240 residents that have no wireline connectivity. They probably have something that can be satellite or a cell phone or wireless. That is not technology that is necessarily stable. It's also not something that would count as full broadband as defined.
And it's pretty expensive too.
It can be, and that's another piece of it. So with that data, I can tell you, if we go back in time a little bit, that number that was 240 used to be more like 500. For as long as a version of the Communications Technology Committee existed, or broadband, or whatever name it had, there's been some past work that's been done. I think it's around $200,000 in grants or a little less. plus some work that LCI did on their own, plus some work that we got out of Spectrum, just renegotiating a contract. And that cut the number down to where it is now. Because of how that is distributed, that is why we're now at the point where, while we've applied for grants and looked at things to get small pockets done, we're not getting a lot of buy-in there. There's other places that have had a larger need, and the systems and grant awards have changed. So we have our price from LCI. Is that a number we're okay saying, or do we?
Yep, you're allowed to, yeah.
So to wire the whole town through LCI is about $12 million. We have 90-something miles of road. That is a big number. I don't want to confuse that for unreasonable. That whole conversation was great. Everyone did what they were asked to do. That number was, we took potential grants and things we didn't know about out of the conversation. Our question was, what is the number to get your wired service to all the residents, and inclusive of that, making sure that all the residents have that same sort of universal access. Everyone can pay the same for the same levels of speed.
And there was a reason it went through LCI.
There was.
I mean, you asked just about everybody.
Right. We've gone through several versions of this, reaching out to ISPs saying, hey, we're trying to get grants. We're trying to see if someone wants to expand their network. It was also with the knowledge of, we don't have like actual money, but how can we get there? Will you work with us to write a grant or something like that? We got some responses, in the beginning, people would try to get some work done, but we got to a point where it got very quiet. We went through not quite a year where we didn't really hear anything. But LCI would answer the phone when we called them. So we said, hey, let's use some TIF funds and get a design done. So we have some clue where we are. So we have a plan to put in the back burner. So that's the first complete sentence. You raise your hand like twice. What's up?
And I just want, have we checked out Starlink?
So Starlink is a neat service. It's available a lot of places, but Starlink is $600 to $700 per user, and it's reasonably fast, but it changes satellites every 40 minutes or so, and you lose your connection. And it does not qualify for any grants. It's not considered actually broadband. It's great for the last 1% that can't get a wired connection, but it is not a solution. I'll add some data to that, and I'd have to look up the town, but there are a couple towns in Maine that took their broadband committees and stopped them and said, Starlink will solve all our problems, and nobody could afford it. Also, because of density, the more people you put on Starlink in a geographical area, the slower it gets. Any kind of wireless, whether it's cell phone,
So, yeah.
satellite, red zone, any of that, the key to speed is having a not dense user population. So the whole goal with everything we're doing, when we yell about fiber and not doing wireless for most of those places, is to reserve it for the people we can't get to.
But the 600 or 700, that's a one-time hit.
That's a one-time hit,
What's
and
the monthly?
around $100 a month, 100 to 125.
So that's. So
That's maybe $2,000 for 1 year, for the first year service.
yeah, no, I got that. Right. And the other one that you were talking, you're getting to it.
Yeah, so
160.
I'm going to give you some other numbers to plug in there, and I can put that into the spreadsheet too, because I love data that I can just look at a picture at and figure it out. LCI service their offering is on the internet. You can go see what their pricing is. Their premier product, their gigabit fiber, I think is 114 a month. And last I checked, it was 100 megabit was, I think, 89 a month.
About
We need to check that. I'll check that when I put that into the spreadsheet. The next number that will probably be useful to you, and you probably weren't on the email list, so I'll send it out. I'm going to go back to the nutrition label things I sent out. There's a new law in Maine, actually in the whole country, that every ISP with more than 100,000 subscribers has to create what looks like a nutrition label with all their pricing and their plan data in a very easy to read thing. You don't need to be technical to understand it. And it's promo prices, it's their regular prices, it's everything they offer. So you can very easily line them up next to each other. I sent out a version of those to most of the committee. I can also integrate those into that document. The spreadsheet I'm talking about with all the broadband, as long as everyone understands that is a work in progress and they are all estimates. So they're sort of for internal use. I don't want to give anyone false hope. So aside from that, let's go to Spectrum, who exists for 90% of Waldoboro, somewhere around there. And they've done some work for us. When we renegotiated, they connected 50 or so homes for us up on Chapel Hill and surrounding roads. That was not cheap for them. But also businesses can't love you back. So, we think about them that way. Yes.
just a quick thing for LCI and the Waldeboro one. It's 114 for the gigabyte service. It is I'm just rounding up because they do 95 cents.
Right.
It's $90 for the 100 symmetrical.
Mhm.
It is. Oh, okay. It's 90 for the symmetrical. It's 95 if you want 120 with the bundle, and then it's $75 for 50/10 with the bundle. So those numbers get a bit messy there, but
50 down, 10 up.
50 down, 10 up, and that's all bundled price and everything. The 115 is, I believe, just the internet. Same thing with the 90, just the internet.
So the next prices you want to know about are Spectrum, where we can get most places. And they range from, at a promo rate, they start at 49 and they go up to 90 something. Their rack rates are their gigabit, which is a gig down and 40 meg up, is $114. Their mainline internet is $90 a month for 300 by 10.
Right.
So now we go to CCI, where their Fidium product comes in, is Lincoln County has been talking to most of their towns. And if you haven't watched the select board meeting where Evan spoke, I recommend you do that because he had a really clean way of communicating it that's probably better than what I'll do.
This was last week's.
This
select
was
board
last
meeting.
This is Evan Bitkowski.
Yep.
Evan's the man. Shout out to Evan. So for Waldeboro's participation along with other towns, we're working together to get sort of a scale going. It makes us big enough where a company like CCI will pay attention. So for our part, we would put in $316,000. The county is going to give us another $100,000 in matching funds. And these towns, of their combined efforts, will go to CCI, who will then apply for grants that those funds go towards. And the net effect is not just Waldeboro, but the county gets that same service to every doorstep. Fidium, their lowest promo rate is $25 a month. And when that promo ends, it goes up to 40. They then have, I think, a 60, an 80, and $100 something plan. And their regular non-promo rate is $95 for a 2 gigabit connection. And that's after any promos end. And because it's fiber, the other thing about that tech that you hear people say ad nauseum is that's as fast as you put the lasers on the end. You can transmit up to a terabit per second of data through one piece of glass. That's an unfathomable number. I'm good at fathoming big numbers. The other knock-on effect that would have, if you pass a place that has cable or Starlink or LCI, those places will either have to lower their prices to compete or they won't be relevant. And that's where the digital equity piece comes in. We get everyone access to the same service, but we also lower the price.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And as part of that, those remaining 240 some odd homes, we want to get them all connected, or at least most of them. If there's someone that hasn't really able to get service with a half-mile long driveway and they don't want to run fiber, they're going to have to do something else. But we've also removed competition from the spectrum in the air. So if that one person can't get connected and they get Starlink, they're going to have a fast, clean connection because they're not competing with their neighbors. And that's the other knock-on effect.
Ruben and Rebecca wants to point out that the fiber internet does not go out with the power.
So that depends on how you build the network.
Yep.
I say that I almost won the lottery when I bought my house. I've got TDS fiber because I'm on the edge of Warren. If you build your network with the right equipment, your fiber network can stay out without power. It is also possible to build it where you have a powered piece of equipment. There's always a failure point somewhere. Fiber networks tend to be, when built properly, which any of the people we're talking to, whether it be LCI or whether it be CCI, what they build will probably feel better than cable. Spectrum is not just staring at the wall doing nothing. They're putting upgrades in. You're going to see their speeds increase. What you won't see is the cost decrease unless there's competition. But that there again, everyone wins. The last thing I'll tell you about my home internet, because I've gotten to have this experience. So I put my fiber in. TDS charges me $63 a month for a gigabit network. And then I didn't actually turn my Spectrum connection off. I got the lowest speed connection they give me, and I built my router, and I can handle up to 6 incoming connections. I have 2. So if there's a weather event that takes fiber down, which can happen, nothing's impervious, I can stay online and work for the hospital. And that is not something a normal person does, but I'm not a normal person. What that is,
What that means
It's
is you
something-
never get a snow day.
well, I like my job. What my real point there though is, if a homeowner has access to that, that means a business has access to that. And redundant connectivity is more and more important if that's how you make your money. There's a lot of other benefits that I think I've talked about till I'm blue in the face in terms of shopping or education or all these wonderful things you can do on the internet. If you can do it, you can find a way to do it online.
It's a great point.
Gets back to the importance this has for economic development, which is what this committee is all about.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, we have to vote on this in June. I think the warrant article is number 45.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Bob, or, I'm sorry, Ruben,
Well,
were you-
my
was there
only
more
other point-
context?
My only other point there is none of these companies are bad. LCI has done us favors. They wired the downtown in a lot of areas at their own cost. They've given us a number if we want to have our own network built in Waldoboro run by LCI. Spectrum has done a lot of work and they've answered some calls. They're also a massive corporation. No one in this mix has done anything bad, and it's easy to hate on whatever provider. This deal is the best deal for all the numbers we've gotten by whatever the percentage of 361,000 versus 12 million is.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we're doing, you'll see posts online, you'll see them in What's New Waldoboro, which is the group. The Maine Connectivity Authority has a site you can go to do a speed test to report what you're getting, and you can upload your bill. Let's say this fails completely and we don't want to do the LCI network. We still have plans B and C where we would look to apply to new grants if we still aren't done with the mission. I'm hoping we can put this to bed because I love the internet, but I'm getting tired. But that test is incredibly important for the Maine Connectivity Authority and the state governments knowing where the needs are. They can only work with data that's as clean as what's provided to them. Those tests are, you can run a speed test on your phone, your computer, whatever. And they ask that you run 3 over the course of the week, and they ask that you upload your bill so they can see what you're paying, and what your results are. And they have other math to go in the background, like if it's on Wi-Fi, they can see that and do all that stuff. They just need people to say, this is what I have. If you've got something and you're not happy with it, this is how you can participate to make that better.
It's great to know.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
That email you referred to from Evan Gutkowski, get this with the flyer on it.
Yep.
I'm gonna forward that to Rebecca with a request that she posted on what's new
New
in
in
Waldoboro. So everybody, and the deadline is May 2nd.
To Rebecca's credit, who can hear us but can't speak right now,
Yeah,
that flyer is up.
I saw it.
That one with the QR code is a great link, especially if it can be printed and put in a public space. But we've got some participation in that list. Also, I've got data from that spreadsheet, which is just the names of the roads that have unserved customers on them. I'm never gonna publish someone's address. But some people came up and said, hey, I don't have anything on my road. Do you know that? And in that thread, that whole list is there. And I think I know about each road that doesn't have service.
Can
And if it's a
somebody,
road that has,
Go
if
ahead.
that road has a phone line, then with CCI, that phone line would get replaced with fiber. And I'm saying that because people have questions about public and private roads.
Right. Jen, you had a comment?
yeah, I just wondered if someone would send me that flyer or that post so that I can forward it in our newsletter this month to the businesses.
it's on its way, Jen.
You're the best,
Thank
Jen.
you, thank you.
To me, this is just such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If we're talking about economic development, it's like, this is the one of the top criteria for locating your businesses. Do you have fast, affordable internet? Do you have redundancy? Like you were just pointing out, this is, to me, 150% the way to go.
Yeah, and then for the residents, the amount of people, it's funny that it seems like the more you make, the lower your bills can be at certain places.
Yeah.
And I've had, friends reach out with their communications bills, just internet and phone. And my God, the amount people pay for stuff that's not as good as what you have if you have the resources to go look is just astounding. So getting our least well-resourced people in town access to that lower cost internet where they can still do all the neat things most of us can do would be great.
If you don't mind me just jumping in, Bob, just for the benefit of those who may not be aware, can you talk about Article 45 on the warrant just a little bit?
Article 45 puts the question of this cooperation with the county on the table and asks people to express their opinion, whether they want to do this or not. the two sources of funding the town would use for its $316,000 contribution would be from the TIF. I think you said 160,000, Max?
About is what we have right now.
Yep, okay, and then the remainder would come from fund balance. So there's no direct impact on your taxes. This is money that's already set aside. So, but we need voter approval to use it. And I can't think of a better way of using those funds than what we're talking about right now.
And the other thing I'll just point out with the TIF, that's 160 for what we have right now. We just entered in the new fiscal year and the new fiscal year for the taxes, so I don't know when once the mill rate is determined, we'll have an updated number by October. I'm projecting that's gonna be an additional 1 to 120, so that takes us up to 280 at that point. And TIF essentially pays for it at that point. I mean, $30,000 difference, but still.
My only question there, and again, I'm Mr. Internet, I'm sure I have a hat somewhere. Do we need to be concerned about burning the TIF out on one effort, as important as this effort is?
That's my question too, is is it worth just saying we're gonna spend max amount on the fiber?
I would be I mean, it just means we don't do any smaller project that happens, which is fine. I don't think there's an emergency where I have to use the tip for anything. The trails are probably the only thing I would have spent it on, but I mean, it's not like we're losing out on a grant or anything for that. There were some other projects that were going to use the tip, like the Elm Street culvert, for example, and that being replaced. And then whenever some work for maybe the main health center and getting an architect involved in there, that was going to maybe use it. And then as a matching grant for like the downtown for revitalization for that. But most of those projects aren't going to happen until next summer anyways, which is when we'd get a new thing for the grant for the tip. So, you know, we're gonna get the 280 or so, hopefully 280 or so this October. And even if we use all of that next summer, we'll probably get the same 120, maybe more if a revaluation happens. Which again, see what happens. I hope it doesn't happen for the average resident.
But right now, I mean, I know there was concern about if you made this investment in broadband infrastructure, how is that gonna raise my property taxes? And the point being, this is a false choice. It's not. This project is not going to
No,
raise your
It's not
property
gonna raise your
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah.
Would, since this is the first time I've heard about warrant Article 45, would it make sense if I were to draft a letter to the editor of the Lincoln County News, urging people we would want them to vote for it? Would it be a yes, no vote, to vote for it? I would draft it. I'd need to have at least you, Bob, and probably you, Ruben, make sure that I'm accurate. in my
Nothing would make me
language.
happier, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
then
then,
we can
and
all sign it.
here's where we get, well, we can either all sign it, or perhaps more effective would be if each of us takes it, tweaks it a little bit, and then sends it in, you know, under.
That's a private resident.
Over your signature, yeah.
great idea.
So it just gets, because people need to see things often, I think.
Also, anyone that usually reads that newspaper online, I don't know why, but their site's been broken. I hope they're okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just in there talking about the internet and that it went down the same day. So I can't prove someone's after me.
Oh.
Don't be paranoid.
That was when you messaged me. I think it was you. I was in Lincoln County News talking about broadband and
Oh.
Disney and stuff.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the day that published was the same day the website crashed. It's still down.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. If anyone hasn't seen it, Ruben was the Waldeboro Voice of the Week.
Yeah, and they had another one in there that was, it was about Waldeboro being in broadband. So your idea is great because it continues momentum.
Yeah.
Good.
If anyone hasn't seen it and can't go to Lincoln County News, we still have the article here in the town office.
The last week's hard copy.
Last week, yeah, we have the hard copy here in the town office.
I get it because I subscribe to the internet.
Yeah,
You could
I
get the
subscribe,
paper.
I subscribe to it too, but.
Hmm.
I have to
And
figure out
Rebecca
the reason.
is seconding everyone's thoughts here. Letters together always help
Mm.
spread them over some time.
And I think
Yeah.
it's a nice positive thing. There's so much dark, loud stuff in there. I hope this is anywhere near as an easy of a good decision as it seems like.
Yeah,
Be nice to have some good positive things in the newspaper for some people.
right.
100%. Okay, we need to talk about the next thing, so
Sure.
we need to move on. Julie has tasked this committee with, building new Welcome to Waldeboro signs. There's $7,500 appropriated for this project in the current budget, so it just needs to be done now. And, I have a few things to say about this before I ask some questions, and we can take a vote on different options here. I think that this could be part of a broader signage campaign
Mhm.
for the town that would include Welcome to Waldeboro signs, historic village, this way sign, maybe right by Jefferson Street. Any other orientation signs that would go along with that, and parking signs, really clear, coherent parking signs that have the names of the parking lots labeled so that we know what's being talked about here in both directions on Main Street, this kind of thing. I was driving around today and I was thinking that it's nice to have these state managed signs directing to individual businesses, but like when you're coming into Waldeboro, there's just a lot of different kinds of signs pointing in different directions. There's the Welcome to Waldeboro sign, then you get down to the bottom of the hill and you see a DOT sign that says Waldeboro 1 mile this way. That's confusing. Then beyond that, very hidden inside of the Irving parking lot is Historic Village, it's kind of humble looking. There's just kind of a chaotic situation with the signage right now. In addition to that, I feel that the two Welcome to Waldeboro signs on the north and south side are way too far out. The one on the north side is in the middle of the forest. So it's like, this is Waldeboro. Where's the ship? And then on the south side, it makes sense in a way because it's right by the turnoff on old Route 1, but it's still not in the village. It's not orienting to the commercial district of Route 1. So we can move the Welcome to Waldeboro signs. That's the first point that I want to make. Second point is that this has been taken up in the past. There was a kind of subcommittee, and one of the designers who was on that is a graphic designer for LL Bean, amongst other things. She lives here on Pine Street. Cindy is her name, Cindy Butler, no relation.
No.
And so this subcommittee met a couple times or once, and then it sort of disbanded. So there was a false start at this, but Cindy has already looked at doing this in the past. She would be my number one candidate or option one. And if the town wants to have two quotes to do this, the other person I would suggest would be Willie Wong, who bought the Friendship Street School, and he did a branding campaign for New York City in the past. He's also just been involved in getting the Waldeboro Art Walk situation happening again on the fourth Fridays.
There's a third option,
And
Brian and Amanda Scheusker.
then there's also
They
Brian
did the
Randall.
artwork for the 250th anniversary.
And they just did the Waldeboro Business Association website, which
There you
is
go.
very good. It's very clean.
Yeah. So having three quotes is even better.
Okay.
But
Absolutely.
a word of caution, that $7,500 allocation probably wasn't for moving the location of the sign. I think it was probably just for the sign. Correct me if I'm wrong, Max.
I'd have to look at the warrant, but I mean, I thought it was pretty broad and just said for doing the signs.
Oh, okay.
So I asked
But-
Julie this question and she said, you can absolutely move the signs.
Oh. Fantastic. Okay.
And that you don't need DOT's permission or anything. The only technicality would be dealing with the old brick planters, you'd have to take them apart, but anybody can do that. So we can move them. And in fact, if say we sat down and we determined through these quotes that the cost of doing all the signs together comes to 18.5 or whatever, you could still say the 7,500 is for just these two signs for a start, and that's the first phase of the signage project. So I would highly recommend that we move pretty quickly on identifying designers and then choose somebody and basically just say, as a committee, we should communicate and say, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. go to town. I don't want this to sort of be a design by committee that goes on and on and on and on for 6 months. I think we find a designer and have it done, essentially.
I can't make the motion, but if I were to make the motion.
Yeah.
It would be for this committee to recommend to the select board that the monies be bid out competitively to those three entities. And that they request indications of possible design and willingness to do the work.
Okay. Um,
I don't think you really have to go to the select board on that just yet. I mean, I think if the idea is just to go and do a bid out, then we could just make a document that says we're looking for designs.
Under Julie's authority, you could.
yeah, my understanding is that basically we can do everything up to,
The actual choosing of the,
yeah,
yeah.
like we can choose the designer actually in the committee. That was my understanding. And that essentially what we recommend to the select board is here's the
Here's
here's the designer, here's the project.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
yeah. We can do the recommendations and then it's just the select board has to actually formally do it. Same thing with the RFP. We don't really need to have the select board do any of that yet. We can just put together the RFP and then the select board says, looks good, send it out.
Okay. Um. Go ahead.
I just want to be aware that $7,500 feels like a lot to us. But it may not be quite as large for some of these folks who are looking for, maybe looking to do bigger projects. So we might not, might want to do what we can to minimize the number of hoops they have to leap through.
I hear what you're saying, and I kind of wonder if when we ask these designers, if we can indicate the amount that we have to do these two signs for a start.
Well, that's
You know what I'm
public
saying?
information anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna
out
say,
there.
you can indicate that in terms of the hoops to put them through. It can just be as simple as, given contact information, price, and if you want like a basic design or something to, or even just saying you have references so we can look at some previous work, that's the bare minimum standard.
Just ask for a basic, application from each of these three.
Yeah.
Folks.
That-
Okay.
And whoever else might apply too.
Okay.
So ELA.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, super.
And then, okay, so I guess we need to make a motion to do this, to do an RFP. Or,
Not really, you could just, whoever wants to do the RFP could just start working on the RFP, really.
okay, well, my question to the committee then is, if we move the signs, let's start with the north side. Sign. There are two locations that occur to me. One would be right by Delano's and the other would be opposite Moody's down there. I'm curious to know if anyone has thoughts about, is it a good idea to move that north sign? I strongly feel that it is, because I think seeing Welcome to Waldeboro in the middle of nowhere isn't really doing us any favors.
It'd be worse now, stuck up in the woods.
It is halfway nothing.
And
Yeah,
the
it's
first
not-
thing you see after that is a trailer.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, I'm only speaking personally so it always seemed like the weirdest spot to me, because you're right, it is in the middle of nowhere. Like, if it was on the town line, that makes sense, because that's the actual boundary line. If it was at Delano's or Moody's or whatever, then yeah, that's where you start seeing all the actual activity going on. But right there, after or before 235, whichever way you're coming from,
What is this doing?
I don't know what it's doing.
Yeah.
I agree. My concern is that there is a whole lot going on as you come in, once you hit Delano's,
Mm.
it's sort of what's going on. There's Moody's and all of Moody's ancillary options. You've got, 220 coming in, you've got that light, which is a little idiosyncratic, shall we say. We've got Borealis, there's all the gas stations. I completely agree. I don't like where it is now. I'm not certain, especially, across from Moody's or around Delano's. There's a lot going on there, and I'm just
I'm slightly more
Yeah.
inclined to the Delanos location because as you were just pointing out, there isn't 5 million signs around.
Yeah.
And that's where at least you have like the sense that like we're approaching. I mean, ideally, you would want to push these signs as close to the business district of Route 1 as possible. Because the goal in the next 10 years is how do we make that business district look like a business district and not just some more Route 1 stuff
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
So I think the closer the better. I understand the concern about the Moody's thing because everything else that's going on there. But when you get to that light, you do think, oh, maybe I'm in a town.
Right.
So I would just
That would- yeah.
welcome emails from anyone over the next couple weeks with ideas about where we would move them. And also what we'd want them to say. I mean, I would be inclined to just do away with the ship and make it as simple as possible. I mean, people come to Odd Alewives all the time apparently and ask Sarah, where's the ship?
Yeah,
So that seems like a problem to me.
Do they have a ship in a bottle down
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Can we get them one?
the home of the 5-masted schooner that doesn't exist anymore.
Where's the 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So, okay, so moving the north side, moving the south side, it occurred to me that, it might be best when it would be a little bit further, right at the top of the hill where you could see down the hill. In other words, right before the speed changes to 40. That seems to be kind of the ideal spot for the Welcome to Waldoboro, because here's Welcome to Waldoboro, there's Waldoboro. And then in the long term, it'd be better to clean up some of that stuff. I don't want to see Welcome to Waldoboro and then Waldoboro 1 mile this way. That's where we want to get into the coherent campaign of like, welcome to Waldoboro, historic village, right on Jefferson, right on 32, or whatever. But starting with these two, my recommendation would be move the south sign, like I just said, right before the 40-mile-an-hour speed sign, and on the north side, maybe by Delanos. If someone feels strongly that it should be moved closer to Moody's, I'm all ears, so.
I like the idea of near Delano's. Putting it closer to Moody's to me feels like we'd almost be excluding Delano's, and I don't think people come to get their car repaired, but there's that other business
Right.
across from Delano's.
Banks.
For the
Yeah.
hump
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
before Moody's come up, where they're like,
and Moody's is pretty well known.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where the auto place is across the street from Delano's.
Yep.
Manx, is that, or is it
There's a,
Winks? No.
Wait.
I'm not sure.
Winks,
I'm
yes,
vaguely aware
Winks.
there's cars there and they
Winks.
seem to
Yeah,
fix things.
Where's the south?
I haven't had needed the
When you come
service.
from the south, Route 1 south, where's the?
it's just past the funnest
It's
kind
near the vet hospital.
beyond the vet.
She's on the line. Lori's building is right on the town line between.
yeah, and that's where the sign is.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I
Is that too
agree.
south, far south? That's not-
Well,
No, that's like right on the town line, I think. Sorry.
yeah, it's not the worst, but it's still a little ways for you, like you go over and you can see. I just kind of feel like it's not really pointing to anything other than turn this way to go down Old Route 1.
Right.
So it's not really helping us in terms of this is Waldoboro. That's how I felt about it.
So the top of the hill,
But it's before the top of the hill. That's the
Yeah,
issue.
right.
It'd be right. I think it'd be better if as you're starting to go down the hill, you could see it laid out in front of you.
I agree.
That's a good idea.
If you know how to do it when you're tracking these ideas, a link in Google Maps might be a good idea. When you click on it on your browser, it'll just take you where you think you want to see it.
Oh, and like using Street View so that we can
Yeah.
get a picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
good idea.
Well, in terms of the north sign, that's why I think it makes sense that the Delano one, because it's right before the bump, and I personally like that little view when you're just going over the bridge of
Yeah.
where the railroad. That seems like
Yeah, I like that.
that's a nice view.
That's a great point. But it would have to be in terms of, I drove by it and just thought about practically, once you get past Delano's, the shoulder drops off and then you have the bridge.
Yep.
So the only next possible spot would be where all those other signs are around.
Right,
Moody's.
should be before Delano's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heading east.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so that's the overview. I will draft an RFP. Or are we calling it that? Or is it just an invitation?
Invitation for requests or, I mean,
EOI, expression of interest.
Expression
Yeah.
of interest? Okay.
yeah, I mean, we use the different terms, but
There's
really, you're
essentially
just
the
seeing
same
who can
thing,
do
I
it.
think.
And basically I'll ask for, how would you approach this project? It's what we have for this beginning.
Okay,
I've dealt with too many government agencies.
I believe you.
So expression of interest.
Yeah.
And basically I'll just say, here's what we have to spend on these two signs. We wanted to be part of this broader campaign. How would you approach this project? Okay. All right. So, email me this next couple weeks with ideas about where they should be located, and also just your thoughts about the broader campaign. What should be on these signs? What shouldn't be on these signs? I think the overall goal here is we want to get this done this year, like ASAP. Because as soon as we can get this appropriated, Public Works can do it. I mean, it's really, there's nothing stopping us.
What's the sign gonna be made of?
That's honestly.
That's
I
the
want-
designer.
I want the designer to make this decision. I don't want to start getting.
I just sort of thoughts.
I think that should be up to the designer, but if you have a strong feeling that it should be big or it should be simple, maybe that's where we can say, broadly speaking, not busy, bold, if you have some ideas about how it should feel, go ahead.
They're gonna come to the table with a sense of scale. and
Yeah.
That's gonna be important, and it'll be different for all of them,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
so.
Okay, so that's our project. Any other comments from the committee this month? Yeah.
This is exciting.
Okay. As do I. All right, I move to adjourn.
Second.